Hi, you're watching Coach Talk. I'm here discussing different topics with different guests, giving you some learning, especially as to what's happening around us right now. Today, I have another special guest. We have Amina Taki. Thank you so much for joining me, Amina.
It's great to be here.
So you are health nutritionist, and I think it's so vital right now. I have so many of my friends and clients that are complaining about their eating pattern is totally off. Being at home, it's quite challenging to be healthy and stay fit, but it's a lot more deeper than that. And obviously, you're going to go into the details, and I'm going to really drill you with information because I've had so many people questioning me, and I do have a lot of research behind me. But it's good to talk to somebody professional so that we can actually get some real details as well as the misconceptions around everything that's been posted on social media. So we want to clarify everything, and hopefully we will get through this, and I will let you start. So firstly, what would you like to talk about generally when it comes to us trying to stay healthy during the lockdown?
Sure, great. Well, first of all, it's great to be here and thank you for inviting me.
No, it's a
As
pleasure.
you said, I'm a registered nutritionist and I've been practicing for 3 years now, which is over 3 years. Mostly I work in the community and I work for specific health programs promoting certain I guess, health issues.
Mhm.
So I've been working mostly in diabetes prevention for the past few years, and also generally in public health in general. So yeah, I think just like what you were saying, we're seeing a lot of people who are a bit more concerned or a bit more anxious about their food, about their eating, about their health, especially now that we're at home. And I think the first thing that's important is to acknowledge that and to be aware that it is a difficult time and we have not gone through anything like this before. So it's not meant to be easy and it is meant to be challenging, especially that, you know, our routines have completely changed and we don't actually have a routine anymore. So I think that the first thing is really to acknowledge that difficulty. And the second thing is take it one step at a time. I've been saying this, well, actually, I've been saying it for a long time now, but I think it's more relevant now that be in the present moment and find out what is it that you can do at this moment in time. If at this moment in time you can't necessarily, you know, go out and buy all the different types of foods that you want, try and find what you could do at home right now with what you have, rather than leaving it till you know, thinking next month or when this is over, this is what I'm going to do. So just starting off with a simple question: what is it that I can do right now? And even if it's not as healthy as you think it is, that's absolutely fine. Because there's only a number of things that we can do within our current climate. So I guess it's starting from there.
Yeah, I mean, that's a great introduction, and I'm grateful for you to introduce yourself like that. I wasn't aware of everything that you actually do, which is really useful and vital. And I'm so happy to connect with you on this. And even more happier that you're actually on the show to give this kind of information. I do agree with you. A lot of us are putting pressure on ourselves with regards to what we are facing right now. And obviously it's coming up to, you know, end of 3 weeks, and at the beginning it might be fun to be at home and not have a routine, and then we might get a bit lazy to snack and eat, you know, knowing we have all this free time, but then after, you know, a couple of weeks, you do notice it in your body, in your mind. People are feeling heavier, people are not feeling that great mood as well, because it is stress and pressure.
Mm.
So, as much as we should acknowledge and allow, I think we should also understand, because I mean, personally, I don't know for everybody else, but it doesn't take much to put on those weight, but to actually lose it takes a lot longer, and that could add to the stress. And I'm not saying that you should not be, you know, obviously indulging or, you know, being too mindful as well. But I just feel like if you are overeating a little bit or not having the healthier balance that you normally get, I think, you know, we did talk about this before, and you mentioned that it's good to maybe have more extra activities to kind of balance that. But even then, it's also quite testing, and not everybody has the space to do, the time, or the drive and the initiative. So what could be like sort of set plans and ideas that an individual is struggling with regards to, you know, finding the right meals and having some sort of like knowledge as to what should go into their body that's not going to cause them that much. So we have a bit of a variety of the foods and the nutrition and vitamins that can actually help us, because again, food is not just about diet. A lot of us talk about food as in like losing weight, but it's actually about maintaining health. Okay, that comes first, and I think that's really important, and that's why I brought you along today.
Yeah, yeah, it's great, I guess, to hear some of your thoughts about that as well. And I'm sure a lot of people are having kind of the same thoughts. So I think there's a number of different things going on there, and that's quite, I guess, a broad topic to talk about. But generally, I guess we live in a society where diet culture is really emphasized, and this idea of being thin is healthy. And if you don't meet that certain body image, that means you're unhealthy. And I think that's important to I guess break down. There's a movement, nutrition, called the non-diet approach and intuitive eating, that kind of focuses more on your body rather than fitting a certain image or pressurizing yourself to look a certain way. And yes, some people staying at home might mean that they're snacking more often, and that might lead to weight gain temporarily, or for the period of time that we are here. But that doesn't mean their health is going to suddenly deteriorate because of that weight gain. And actually, when we're going through a pandemic and we're at home and we're going through a health crisis, if I guess we're not spreading the illness, if we're staying at home, and that means as a consequence gaining weight, we're actually still maintaining our health and the overall global health in a certain sense as well. But I guess knowing that is important, but also, like you said, recognizing our diet and what is it that we can eat. So there are different things that work for different people. Some people, for example, like to have a certain schedule when it comes to eating. And they know, for example, that this is the time for me to have breakfast, this is my lunchtime, and this is my dinner. And I have 2 snacks in between. Having a precise schedule like that helps certain individuals. Other individuals actually prefer a much looser type of schedule when it comes to eating, where they know, for example, that generally when they wake up in the morning, they're not necessarily hungry, but they have their breakfast when they actually start feeling hungry. And then lunch or dinner, or their main meal, depending on when is it that they have it. So it really depends, and different things work for different people. And I think one of the good things that we have now is that with that extra time, we can try different things and seeing what is it that works for us, because everyone's different and there is no one thing that suits everyone. So I think it's just about experimenting different things and trying different things. And then when it comes to the food as well, try and be creative with the food that you have as well. I know that we're limited, and I'm not sure if you're going to ask me about that in terms of what to buy and what we can do with those foods. But generally just being creative and trying to get a whole diverse range of different foods and different nutrients, and kind of just exploring things again. Do we like these foods? Do they taste nice? Is it something that I want to eat? And it's just, I guess, about just being more in tune and listening to our body more, just out of creativity, and seeing what is it that we can learn more about in terms of our body.
It's really refreshing to hear you speak, by the way, because a lot of us put pressure on ourselves, and listening to a nutritionist speaking like this is actually quite vital right now, because I think, like you said, firstly, we are obviously trying to maintain a body image which is not necessarily realistic, or even it doesn't mean that it's healthy being looking in a particular way. So that, again, is really, really useful. And we're not saying this enough to people out there, because whether or not, even I think, especially when you're trying to connect the mind and the body, I think if we don't look a particular way, we can sometimes have this image in our mind, which will never keep us satisfied. And that alone actually is more unhealthy than the things that you're eating inside. So that, again, I really appreciate you highlighting that. Secondly, from what you're saying is, we could be quite relaxed, with our diet. And it doesn't mean you having sort of restrictions, but actually enjoying food. A lot of us are actually putting restrictions on ourselves and actually eating things we don't like, and, preparing meals that we may not necessarily even enjoy just because it's out there and it's the next best thing. And I think what you're saying is, oh my gosh, I'm so happy you're here today. I think everyone listening is going to be a lot more lighter in their head about this, because we don't realize that actually what causes us to even increase our health deficiency, or should I say, sort of decrease the health, in our body, is actually you being stressed, and those chemicals being released, causing anxiety and stress and lack of sleep, is actually more detrimental. So I have been doing a lot of research, and yes, there are certain vitamins that you can have from certain ingredients that you can obviously research. There's lots of information out there, and if you want to have a personal consultation with Amina, you can do so. All her details will be in the description box to even do that. And the other question is, do you think that it's like, if we all have, for example, if they say that we all have to have a certain amount of food and fruit, is that for everybody, or do you think that a person's body can take more or less of certain things?
So generally with nutrition, there are certain guidelines that are useful for everyone to follow. And those guidelines, they're just guidelines, they're not rules. Rules make it feel like, if I do this, I'm good, and if I don't do this, I'm bad. But with nutrition, it's never a rule, because a rule is very constrictive and it's very limiting, whereas guidelines are generally useful things that we can apply in our everyday life that would generally help in terms of our health. But just because I'm not doing it every single day doesn't mean I'm unhealthy. So generally, some of the guidelines are something like having a minimum of 5 fruit and vegetables a day. Or, for example, making sure that you're hydrated and you're drinking enough water. To incorporate things like calcium-rich foods as part of your daily diet, and also getting some of the whole grain carbohydrates, some proteins in there as well. So generally, these are general basic guidelines, but just because I might not do it every single day does not necessarily mean I'm unhealthy or it's wrong. And also, everyone's different. So what works for me might not necessarily work for you. But as long as we're trying generally just to apply some of those, healthy eating principles, which all of us are aware of, that is really what is going to help our health and help us get enough nutrients long term. A lot of people think that they need to be doing something very specific, or it needs to be hard for it to be good. But in reality, it isn't. It's just the basic, food and eating principles that we all have, and just trying to incorporate that as much as we can in our lifestyle.
Again, that's also quite interesting, because it's also showing us that we've got to know ourselves very well. I mean, generally when I work with people, psychologically, mentally, it's about knowing yourself very well in your mind, in your identity. And I guess it's the same thing with your body. And you've got to obviously know what works for you and what doesn't. And it's trial and error. And you can obviously talk to professionals, your GP as well, to figure out, what are you lacking? I went and I do regular checkup, and I was lacking a little bit of vitamin D, which is quite common. So I have supplements for that. So everyone needs to do that. And obviously, I think what you're also highlighting is that we need balance. It's not about having restrictions. It's about balance and figuring out, certain things might make you maybe bloated, for somebody else it won't, and certain foods are obviously making people generally put on weight or having the extra fat or whatever it is, for most people. But again, it's knowing yourself very well. So how would you get to know your body really well without just having all the foods and all the different things? Because sometimes it's very difficult for us to notice. Would it be the GP? Would it be someone like yourself, for example, to come to a nutritionist? And what kind of things would you advise? Would it just be food, or do you actually, because I know when you you go to sometimes the gym and you see somebody, they will take your, your measurements and, count your fat and all of those things. And is that something that you would do or not? And the other thing is, I remember you also saying that you don't actually do diets because it is all about balance. So again, yeah. So how would someone understand their body more?
Sure. So again, just a few points there. I think the first thing is, when it comes to diet, there is no nutritionist or dietitian out there that would recommend a restriction, unless there's an actual health condition or a digestive problem. But if generally, let's say for the general population, we never advocate restriction, even when it comes to things like sugar, which is feared, or fats, which are what I guess the more useful approach is to add other things to your diet. When you're adding other things in your diet is much more, much more varied. Because if suddenly, I went around and said to people, okay, so you can't have chocolate, you can't have sweets, you can't have sugar, you can't have fats, there's going to be a big gap in their diet. And then they might, follow the advice for a while, but then they're going to stop because there's a big gap. So what we'd rather do is, rather than focus on the bad things, is just adding other things into our diet, and even sometimes simplifying it to good and bad. It's oversimplistic. There is no one food that's good and no one food that's bad. It really just depends on what we're generally doing within our diet. So how is it that we listen to our body? Well, that's a really, deep question. And food and diet is linked, and even health is linked to our emotions, and even the way that we see ourselves. And to be honest, I don't see them as two separate things. They're intertwined, and that's why we mentioned things like stress, and it's because everything is linked in the body, and we can't necessarily separate the two. I guess what's important is just maybe starting off with a tool that I like to use regularly called the hunger and fullness scale.
Okay.
So the hunger and fullness scale is, imagine from 0 to 10. 0 is you're extremely hungry, you're going to faint, so you're starving. And 10 is you're so full you can't move from the sofa and you just feel not nice. Yeah. So what is it that we tend to do when it comes to this hunger to fullness scale is we tend to go from 0 to the 10.
Yeah.
And then swing back from the 10 to the 0. Yeah. And we go from these, we're constantly swinging between these two different extremes. So the first thing is actually realizing what does hunger feel in my body? And realizing the different stages of hunger. So for example, there's the uncomfortable hunger. The one that we said is you're so full, you're so hungry, you're fainting, you're getting a headache, your mood is, you're just so angry, for example, and you're so hungry you can't even move. Yeah, that is a very uncomfortable hunger. And then we move on to maybe the 3, the 4, which is more of a comfortable hunger. When you're hungry, but you're not hungry, as in you're not hungry and angry. You're feeling, you're starting to feel that hunger, and you might start feeling a little bit, you might feel your tummy rumbling, you might start getting a little bit of a headache, but it's not that extreme. Now, to stay within the 3 and the 4 and to actually eat at that time would be very helpful for our body, rather than waiting for the 1 and the 2. Because if we're uncomfortably hungry, it's very easy to then overeat and then go on the other side and become uncomfortably full. So if we stay within the 3 or the 4 and we recognize how is it that we feel when we're a 3 or a 4, that just maybe prompts us to actually eat that time rather than to wait until we're actually starving. Now, on the other side, what does fullness feel like? It could be something like when you're no longer thinking about food, or you're feeling satisfied.
Or you just want to sleep.
So feeling sleepy or really, really sleepy, that is actually one of the more uncomfortable feelings of fullness. Yeah. So again, so if we're around the 7 or the 8, that's great. But if we're constantly pushing ourselves to the 10 when we're feeling sleepy, when we feel sick, we can't, you know, get up from wherever you were sitting, that is very uncomfortable. So if we stick to around the 7 and 8, again, that would help us to not get that uncomfortable feeling of fullness, and it helps us, I guess, be more aware of what is it that we eat. Because if we're not really aware and we're just eating, we can overeat very easily. The easiest example is, for example, if you're watching TV and you're eating, it's very easy just to swallow food and not recognize what we're doing.
I was going to raise that actually as to, firstly, what you said. I mean, what you've explained in that sort of scale is really vital for us to know that, you know, again, knowing ourselves, because some of us, we can feel that hunger at different times, or maybe we can do it often. So some of us need regular meals and other people don't. So that's how it works. So this kind of explains why some diets do come about. But again, it's not addressing that it does differ for individuals. And that's why, you know, some diets don't work for everybody. But again, like you said, diets are not there. It shouldn't be there for restriction. It should be there for understanding and to give more balance. And I guess also we have to have that habit of choosing the right ingredients over the other. I think that's the other thing that we have to do, because a lot of the time, when we are desperate to eat, personally, even I do myself, I might go for a bar of chocolate or crisp, then go for a fruit, because I think, oh, you know, because I deserve it, because I'm really that hungry. So it's all in your mind and in your thoughts. And I always did concentrate on food for mood as well, but I think it works the other way around too. You know, what you're feeling is actually what you're going to eat. So don't get yourself to those kind of, you know, distress levels in order for you to choose the unhealthy ones. And also, you know, choose things in your cupboard more likely, as much as you might have a snack cupboard, but have more of the healthy cupboard, you know, as well, which we don't seem to have unless we're going to just, you know, prepare meals. And again, choosing to eat, you know, in a sort of like a schedule where you're sitting at the table does help. You take your time to eat. I personally eat very fast, and which is really bad. But I noticed that if I was to be sat at a table and, you know, especially around the family or whatever, it's more conscious then. If you even by yourself, you just tend to slow down if you're on a table than just watching TV, and you just seem to consume without realizing. So again, that is also, yeah, very, very important. I mean, the other thing I wanted to quickly talk about as well, is the immune system. There's a lot of misconception around a lot of that to boost your immune system. And I spoke about it with you even earlier. So talk me through that. Firstly, explaining a little bit about the immune system. I know firstly, it's obviously, you know, 75% of it in your gut. So it kind of detects, you know, any of the sort of nastiness that's actually going to arise. And I think at this point, we do need to keep healthy and concentrate on your gut more. So yeah, I'll let you do all of that, even though I've done my research.
Sure. So I'm sure some of us have seen these posts on Instagram or social media that are saying, you know, if eat this to boost your immune system, or eat this. So I recently saw, and I shared it with you earlier as well. So if you eat garlic, it's going to cure coronavirus. And I think the first thing to recognize is where you're getting your information from. Always make sure that your information is coming from a registered nutritionist or dietitian that is actually, I guess, that has the experience and authority to say these things. I follow a lot of nutritionists and dietitians on my personal Instagram page, and none of them have said eating garlic cures coronavirus, because that is just not true. And
but it's good for your immune system in general, right? Certain ingredients.
Sure. So there are certain foods that help to support our immune function.
Yeah.
The term immune boosting is a bit misleading, because if our immune system is boosted, that means our immune system is working overtime all the time, which is not what we want to do, because that means the immune system will start fighting stuff, and we don't want that. But what we want to do is to have an immune system that works well. And there are certain things that we can do that will help support our immune function. So I think it's just about the wording there as well. So, but also is keeping in mind that there is no one single food or supplement that can help our immune system work better or function better. It's about ensuring that we have a well-balanced diet that is diverse, that has different fruits and vegetables, lean proteins, whole grain carbohydrates, eating the making sure that we're hydrated, even things like making sure that we're sleeping properly or sleeping enough, things like we're managing our stress levels. All of those will help to help our immune system function well. But even things like garlic and I guess certain, so turmeric as well is a big one, things like celery juice as well. So they in itself there isn't enough science to back up to say that actually yes, if you eat garlic your immune system will be better. That doesn't mean there isn't any evidence out there. There is evidence, but there isn't enough for me as a nutritionist to be able to 100% back it up and say, yes, 100% is what you need to do. And actually with nutrition, those things that are backed up 100% that we can say are very limited. So things like eating fruits and vegetables or eating a minimum of 5 fruits and vegetables a day, that's something that is backed up, that we know, that is that has a lot of evidence behind it, that I can confidently say to everyone. But when it comes to specific ingredients, that doesn't mean they might not have a benefit personally to different individuals. They can, and if you found something that works for you, then that's great, keep it up. But that doesn't mean you go around and spread that information to everyone thinking that it's going to work for everyone.
Okay, so what about sort of like people are saying, you know, like tin foods and takeaways and processed foods then? Because if we're going to have a balance, I should add that to my balance, or should I not?
Yeah, so obviously during these difficult times, some of us who are self-isolating might not always be able to go out and buy fresh food. And actually, we know that sometimes some foods that are frozen or tinned tend to have a lot of nutrients. So, for example, frozen vegetables or frozen fruit, for example, because it's frozen as soon as it's picked, the fruits and vegetables, they actually retain more nutrients than some of the fresh ones that we buy. Why? It's because when it's frozen, all the nutrients stay intact. And tinned food as well. So there are many great examples of tinned proteins, whether that's beans, lentils, legumes. They're great. They add protein to our diet, or plant-based proteins that sometimes we tend to underconsume on. They even have nutrients like iron, for example, which is very important for our health. So I think it's one of those misconceptions that fresh food is the only way to have a balanced diet. But with just a little bit more thought, I guess, we can have a perfectly balanced diet that is just from frozen and tinned foods.
What about the ready-made meals and some takeaways and processed food? Because that's being consumed a lot as well because it's easy.
Sure. Yeah, so actually, you just remind me, a few days ago, I was having a session with one of my clients, and I was going through, I guess, some of the information that you were going through, or that we went through together. And then after an hour, he just turned around and said, you know what, everything that you said to me is not relevant because I'm just eating ready meals. You could have told me earlier, but okay. So yeah, he was saying that he can't get anything apart from ready meals, and he was quite elderly, and he was caring for someone who's older than him, and I guess his situation was a bit difficult. So it got me thinking that actually, at that moment in time, if he doesn't eat those ready meals, he will probably fade from hunger after a while. So I guess, again, it's not black and white, and with the ready meals, and sometimes if we've got the time, if we've got the ingredients, we can add other things to those ready meals if we can't have anything else. So for example, just looking at your ready meal, you might see that most of it is just, for example, rice or carbohydrate and maybe some protein like meat or chicken or fish. And if you see that's the case, maybe you could add your own vegetables to that ready meal. So for example, if you've got some, frozen vegetables or even something in a tin or in a can, just having that as part of your meal just means you're adding more nutrients into that meal. And I guess, generally, yes, the best practice is to cook from scratch and I guess, control what you're adding to your food and things like that. But again, that's not always possible for us. So if you can do that, then that's great. If you can't do that, get creative. Think outside the box. What can you do instead? Or what can you add to your meal? Or what tin or can or frozen foods can you add that will make that meal a little bit more balanced and more nutrient dense?
That was actually, again, another really great thought, because it's not taking away the ready meals that are there prepared for a lot of people that don't have the time or even the energy, or like you said, in your case, having a client that, doesn't have much option. But again, to be smart around it. So it's not taking it away, but adding to it like a salad or another vegetable alongside, which could be quickly boiled or whatever, steamed. So yeah, I mean, you again are giving so much information that is actually worrying to most people, that thinking that, I'm eating this and they're probably fine, but it's just in their head that I'm not good, I'm not well, I'm not eating healthy. And again, that can start something even more unhealthy in your body than actually the food that you're consuming. And we do always hear about also takeaway meals. Again, I guess it, like you said, it's not much evidence. It just depends what you're choosing and what are the actual takeaway meals that you're actually getting and how they're being fried, cooked, grilled, whichever way. So that's also another way. I know I've seen on your Instagram that you do prepare some meals. Unfortunately, I would have had the show where you were right next to me and come, with a meal in your hand so we could share. But seeing as though we are not doing that, could you give some ideas as to what sort of like dishes, could be prepared like now, which is quick and easy, or even just generally, like as we are staying at home more, like how do we just stay healthy? A lot of us just want to be taking more care about our health. So especially with a virus or any virus or flu that we don't even get the symptoms, like how can we eat? Is it just balance, or is there more to it? Because, we always seem to think that there's more to it, but from listening to you, it's just all about balance and knowing yourself. And if that's what it is, then that's all it is.
Yeah, it is as simple as that. And actually, in reality, a lot of the times that simple message gets lost, and people think that it's about drinking these green smoothies or having those herbal teas after a meal, but in reality none of that is I guess is evidence-based. And it's the simple message of balance and diversity, I would say both. So making sure that you're getting a whole range of different foods rather than always sticking to one. Sometimes food becomes a habit and becomes habitual. So we end up eating the same food regularly all the time without, thinking outside of the box or getting a little bit creative. But if we're getting that diversity, then that's great. So just a few ideas, I guess, when it comes to things like easy meals. What's always useful is just to try and have some protein, some carbohydrates, and some vegetables as part of your meal. And if you have that basic idea, you can change it in so many different ways. So for example, your carbohydrates can be things like rice, bread, pasta, bulgur, things like I've lost my train of thought there.
I've asked many questions all in once. But again, yeah, of course, we can definitely get people to contact you personally, because like you said, we are all different. But then what are the things that is actually making us increase the weight? Is it because you think it's more about not just the food, but the activity, the lack of activity, because we're not getting up, we're not having the same routine, we're not moving as much? certain areas, people are like where I live personally, there's a lot of cyclists and runners around regular, but if you're not all the time doing that, you're not waking up with an alarm to actually, go by train, take the bus, walk to work, whichever way you choose. Do you think that's more of an issue of you actually gaining that weight and thinking it's that than actually your food intake?
Mm. Okay, so just to clarify one thing as well, I don't think weight gain is an issue. As in, I don't personally see it as a problem in terms of health. Now, obviously, there will be certain cases when it might be an issue for other people.
Well, especially when you cannot get into your jeans and you really can't go and buy anything more. Then yeah.
I guess yes, that's true. Maybe we can't really buy bigger jeans at this moment in time. But I guess when it comes to health, it's just about being trying to apply principles of gentle nutrition and gentle movement. But that kind of, I guess, is what is emphasized on, but it's not the bigger picture. But yeah, so doing things like, movement in general, whatever that means for you, then that's great, because we know that can help support our immune system, that could help with our stress, that could even help with our overall health. And, that gentle movement does not have to be, I have to go for a 5K run every single day if I haven't run before, because I'm staying at home now. It could be as simple as doing some light stretches, yoga, whatever it is that you enjoy, whatever it is that you like. If you're a runner, then that's great. Yeah, but I guess it's just about trying to find a new routine for you now, rather than to think, so before I used to do 10,000 steps a day, for example, and now I'm only doing 1,000 steps. That means I have to make sure that I do 9,000 steps every single day just to make sure I'm doing what I was doing before. It's more about coming up with a new routine of things that maybe you could do right now that are a bit easier, just to make sure that you're maintaining your movement and your mobility, for example, and your stress and your managing your stress and your food. But like I said, to me at this moment in time, what's really important is that self-compassion and that kindness to yourself. It's already stressful. The world is already so stressful, and we've already seen a rise in anxiety and mental health problems because of this lockdown. And I guess what is really important is that kindness to ourselves, but also implementing that kindness in the gentle nutrition and the gentle movement and managing our stress levels better.
I wish I spoke to you earlier, because again, I think what you've said is really vital for everybody to understand, that it's understanding that our body is really, really equipped for more than we realize. That's what it's about. Our body alone, if we were to study and listening to you speak, it just shows that, we can replenish things, we can add things, we can do things by just maintaining a balance. And it doesn't mean one or more or restricting or anything like that. And obviously each one is on their own journey, and you've got to see for yourself as to how it works for you, which is very healthy advice. And right now, like you said, we just need to keep a proper mindset, because that can be more detrimental for us, and not to be so hard on ourselves to be in a particular way. A lot of people are stressed out because they don't go to the gym, and they think actually that's what's keeping them fit, but it's not. It's a distraction. If you were to have a proper mindset and not go to the gym, you could probably gain the same sort of like fitness level and other things, and they don't realize that just by being happier in your mind, by doing other activities, and just being creative about things that you could do which can create the same happiness. So that's really, really important. And again, I cannot even say it enough how refreshing it is to speak to a professional like yourself who understands this. And nobody comes out there talking like this. They're all about, giving the ingredients, giving the vitamins, giving the diets, saying what not to eat and how to look and what kind of weight you need to have and how much body fat you're having. And then everyone is just going on. And I get so much mail as well as to what you should have in order to prevent illnesses. Again, it also depends if you've got the balance and certain things work for you. That's all you really need. And I wish people will speak out loud about this, and if they're not, they're certainly going to hear it now. So yeah, no, I mean, this was so enlightening. I think this episode hopefully will go far and spread, and people will get the real information. So just keep doing you, just keep being you, and enjoy food. Everything's at balance. Obviously, there's lots of information online to see even show you like certain things do have more calories if you feel that your body doesn't want that right now, and you under strict medical advice about that. For example, nuts is a good snack, but it contains lots of high calories. So don't have a bowl, have a handful. That's kind of thing is what you need to do. But before we end our discussion, I want to sort of like, have some final words from yourself to sort of stay healthy and again, just to sort of close the actual discussion.
Sure. I think the final point that I'd like to go over again is, like we said, that kindness to yourself, not, I guess, falling into that trap of pressurizing yourself and breaking those societal ideals of what we should look like and what we should be doing, and just being aware of your body. And I think the final tool that I'll leave people with is, if you're concerned, for example, about what you're eating or you're snacking, or if you think you're overdoing it, what a useful thing might be to do is just every single time you eat something, have a piece of paper next to you and just write down your feelings before and your feelings after, and your feelings during as well. And that could be done again with the hunger fullness scale that we spoke about as well. Just asking yourself, how hungry am I right now? Am I like a 5? And if I'm a 5, I'm not hungry, but why is it I'm going for food? And then asking yourself, all right, so if I'm not hungry, but I'm going to food, how am I actually feeling? Am I bored? If I'm bored, what can I do instead? Or what can I do as well as? And just using that tool just to be more aware of how your body reacts and why you're making certain choices just might be helpful for you to do.
Thank you so much. I mean, it really does seem like, the couple of tools that you have shared with us will give people an idea. It certainly will give me, because I will obviously consider myself now as to how I'm feeling and when I should eat and when I shouldn't eat, especially with regards to that scale that you've shared. And I'm sure you have so much more tools and information to give people. So please do reach out to Amina. I will have all her details on the description box. If you are concerned or affected by anything that's been spoken about in this discussion right now, and we are here to only help, only to give that new learning. That was the whole point of me doing these shows, hopefully raising so many different awareness and so many things that we are being questioning about, especially now that we don't have choices and we are put in situations where we are dealing differently, but we can still help each other. And that's what I'm trying to do, is to help each one of you out there with some real information, which is of basically substance, more substance and authority, like Amina said. So it's not coming from just anyone and anything. I am choosing my guests quite selectively so that you are getting the best information that you can get out there. Thank you so much, Amina, for being, part of this discussion and sharing all your information. I hope to see you soon. I'm sure I'll be working with you in the future, as we spoke before, while all of this finishes. Thank you so much for being here today. Thank you. You're welcome. And I hope that the viewers had some real, learning today, because I certainly did. As much as all of my research kind of put to one side, I thought I was going to, talk about ingredients and what to eat, what not to eat. But actually, it's just, you trying to just, remain calm and balanced and, maintain that mental health is the most important thing. And you are fine exactly as you are. Obviously, if you've got some, major issues that you're aware of, or you're feeling really not, well, then you've got to seek that, general medical advice. But for everyone out there, just keep doing what you normally do. And if you're finding it a struggle, again, we are here to help you. I myself do coach, a lot of people, and alongside Amina, she can do the same. Please do subscribe if you want to continue listening. Do share the episodes. And I hope to see you on the next one very, very soon. Take care, stay safe and healthy, and enjoy eating. Take care. Bye.